Pretty spiritual.
Hi, I'm Shay.
And I'm Amy, and welcome to another episode of
Pretty Spiritual. Hi, Hun.
Hi, Hun.
How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So we know the drill by now. Let's start with the high vibes and low vibes from the past week.
Okay, so low vibe for me is we got a taste of spring this week.
We did.
We had some 14 to 15 degree weather, and then suddenly it's cold and wet again. And I pulled out all the linen trousers. I pulled out all my kind of spring stuff. I was like, this is it. This is happening. Like ultimate comfort. I mean, I do love a cozy knit, but I was like, okay, we're going for it. And then it was raining, and I was just like, oh. Yeah, so that was my low vibe. And then my high vibe, we have a joint high vibe.
We do.
We do.
I'll let you share.
Yeah. So for this next week, we are going on a spiritual retreat together.
We are. Oh, so excited.
For 4 days. And it's in Glastonbury, which is the heart chakra of the UK. I'm so excited.
I've actually never been to Glastonbury, so it's going to be an experience for us both.
So much fun. And obviously, as spiritual girlies, we know it's the hub of spirituality. So we're really excited.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like it's going to just be such a nice weekend.
Much needed right now as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've both been very busy. So I feel like it's come at the perfect time for us. And I just think a weekend of relaxing, healing. I think there's quite a few different things planned, isn't there? So I think it's going to be a lovely weekend.
What about you, Hun? What's your high vibe, low vibe this week?
So yeah, high vibe I think we've just covered. Really looking forward to the retreat. So I'm going to piggyback onto that. My low vibe is walking around the supermarket, had a full shopping trolley filled with shopping. And then when I got to the checkout, I realised that I hadn't brought any shopping bags in with me. And I was just like, okay, why is this happening? I was like, what should I do? But so that was my low vibe for the week.
So, Hun, what are we talking about on the pod this week?
So this week we're going to be talking about the art of flow and how to let harmony guide your life.
Okay.
So this isn't about doing nothing. This is about stepping back, observing, and getting into a cycle of life's natural rhythms.
Okay, and this is perfect timing because we are filming just ahead of the full moon in Libra that's happening on the 2nd of April. And that is a time that is focused on balance, partnerships, and social harmony. So it feels like the ideal moment to talk about how to live in flow whilst actively participating in life.
Definitely. So, Hun, maybe you could start by sharing with us what flow looks like and means to you in this chapter of your life.
So flow is a state of mind that I struggle to achieve because everything in my head is so busy at one time. And I can achieve flow, but it's in small segments, so it's not like a constant state for me. Most of the time when I reach a flow state, it's usually when I'm creating something. And the way that I describe flow for me is all the noises in my head go quiet. There is nothing around me. I'm in that pure silent state of like either concentration or like the energy feels like I'm creating energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does.
I can actively feel energy flowing through me. Everything is silent and I'm not thinking about anything other than what I'm doing. And it feels like a really positive state to be in. But yeah, as I say, it's really difficult for me to reach a flow state unless I'm actively creating something. So, Hun, what does flow look and feel like to you?
So flow for me feels very calm. It feels very grounded and almost feels effortless. You know, you're just kind of going with the natural flow of life and letting life unfold rather than trying to fight against something.
Second guess.
Yeah, rather than, like you say, second guess or kind of trying to force an outcome that isn't the right one. I think that's the difference for me. I think when I'm in flow, I feel calm, I feel grounded, I feel like things just happen naturally and unfold in the way that they're meant to. And you kind of lean into that. I'm not saying that you don't need to make any effort, because you do, but you're kind of like leaning into the way that the direction that things are going in. Whereas I think when I'm not in flow and I'm kind of going against the natural tide of life, I think I can then start to feel quite anxious, quite tired, quite frustrated, and like things become hard work almost. And it's like, I'm not saying that, everything is easy, because it's not, but I think it's just trying to really lean into the natural flow state when you can. So has there been a time that you've tried to force a particular outcome, or really tried to force something and it just hasn't quite worked out?
Yeah, I would say this past month, maybe a couple of weeks, has been really hard for me with my own spiritual practice. So I've had a lot of outside factors that have been like dragging me down like negatively. And I had healing yesterday, which has helped me shift a lot of that and also reflect on a lot of that. But I was really trying to force certain things that I do in my practice, like journaling. I'm still doing my astrology diploma, and I was really struggling to apply myself to that. So I'd sit down to do it, and I was like forcing it. I was like, right, tonight I'm going to sit and do this. And then I'd be there and I'm like, I can't. I'm not putting 100% of myself into this. I don't want to show up and do 50% of myself, even 40%. So I was really, really struggling to do that. Then with like my journaling, I'd really got into a good flow of writing in my journal every night, and kind of a little bit more than journaling. It was kind of talking about moon phases and things like that. But then I found that I couldn't. So yeah, I was there trying to force myself to kind of journal and be present in my practice. But by me showing up and forcing that, it was having a negative impact on how I felt about my practice. And sometimes it's easier to just take a step back and not show up and not force it. And that is much more kinder to do and more in flow than putting a negative aspect on something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think if you're already feeling like you're forcing the journaling, it's probably not going to have the desired effect after, because you're not going to be like, oh, I'm so glad that I did that.
I've released all that.
Yeah, because it's meant to be there as a tool and a release, isn't it? And I think if you're feeling like you already don't really want to do it, and you're kind of forcing yourself to do it, it's not going to have the desired outcome that you want it to. Whereas if you're having a day where you think, I really want to journal, like I've really, like, I feel like I need right to, that's when you're probably going to feel the benefits from it afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this leads on to something else we were going to cover, and it's kind of about alignment and how things align with you. And I just touched on the fact that my astrology diploma, I tried to force myself to sit down and do that, and I'm nearly finished. That's the thing, I can see the end in sight. I've just got a couple of assessments to do.
That final hurdle though sometimes is always the hardest, isn't it?
And I'm like, just sit down and do it. But when I sat down and I'm like, I can't give myself that, like the 100% that I need to put into this right now. I can't give it the focus, the attention, the want to do it. And I'd just be doing it for the kind of sake of just getting it done. It's when you sit back and you realise, right, this is not in alignment with what I need right now. It is better for me to take a step back. And because there's no time limit on it for me. I mean, I could do it in 2 years. I mean, hopefully I'll get it done soon. But this does not align with what I need right now. Put it back, sit down and do it when you are feeling at that point of being able to. And I think it's really important to kind of make sure everything that you are trying to do or want to do does align, and then it will flow. So why do you think we struggle so much to trust flow?
So I think it is because of the modern world that we live in. So if you think about how the world is structured and how our lives are structured, it's very much built on routines, schedules, deadlines, And so that doesn't leave much room for flow. If we think about our week, the vast majority of people, we work a 9 to 5 or we work a shift pattern. Mm-hmm. So we're told what hours we need to be at our place of work. Mm-hmm. We then have, you know, a little bit of time in the morning to do the things that we need to do in the morning. Mm-hmm. We then have a time that we set out. We have our commute. We go and have our day at work. Yeah. When we're at work, we normally have fixed hours. We have a fixed break time. We have a fixed lunch time. We then travel home at a fixed time. We then have our evening routine. We then, you know, go to bed. We set an alarm. We do the same the next day. So our lives are very much set up around structure, routine, and specific deadlines. Even when we think about, you know, the routine of paying our monthly bills, and, you know, everything is about structure and routine. And by the way, I do actually like a bit of structure and a bit of routine. I need structure. So it's not saying that that's all bad, but I just think that we're kind of conditioned from a young age that structure and routine that's been determined by somebody else mm-hmm. is the norm. Because if you think about it, even from when you're a child, you know, you grow up and
you have a bedtime.
You have a bedtime. You go to school for set hours. Mm-hmm. You're watching your parents or carers go to work mostly day in, day out. You know, so it's very, very, it's kind of embedded into like our brains.
A baby has milk at the I mean, my son had milk at the same time every day, and I still on my phone, because I just don't get rid of anything, have all the alarms I used to set for his bottles.
Do you?
And his medicines and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like had a 9 a.m. alarm come up the other day that mm-hmm. said like morphine or something after his surgery, and I was like, oh my god. But if you think about it, like medications are took every few hours.
Yeah.
Bottles are fed how many hours? Mm-hmm. And you would always assume like lunchtime, 12 o'clock at school, like you have lunchtime at a certain time, and
exactly.
So it is conditioning, isn't it?
It's conditioning. It's ingrained into us mm-hmm. For most of our lives. And like I said, I think part of that can be really positive, and I think we all like a bit of structure, but I think probably 90% of our lives is very much structure and routine.
Determined by routine, yeah.
So then it can be really difficult then to sort of step into flow, because we don't always have that much opportunity and that much time to actually step into flow.
Yeah.
And like an example that I would think of is, so I hate setting an alarm in the morning. I'm not a morning person, and I really don't like setting an alarm. When I find that I set an alarm in the morning, I will sleep up until my alarm goes off, and my alarm is the thing that will wake me up. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I don't set an alarm,
if you go with the flow,
I will often wake up earlier than what I would if my alarm hadn't have been set.
You're so right.
But I'm so worried that like I'm not going to wake up before my alarm, because when my alarm is set, I don't. Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
But it's almost like when I let my body just sleep and wake up at its natural time, I will probably 9 times out of 10 wake up earlier than I need to, or I'll be on time for the rest of my day. But I just have this fear that I'm not going to.
You can't trust it.
Yeah, I can't trust
yourself to wake up.
Yeah, it's like that flow, and like that. I suppose that's just, you know, that's a silly example, but it's an example of, you know, being able to kind of go with the flow versus having that structure. So yeah, I think part of it is very much that like conditioning, but also I think we live in very much a productivity culture. And I do feel like there is quite a bit of a shift happening at the moment, I would say. So I actually think that we're in a bit of a disruption phase where people are starting to question and maybe challenge this productivity culture.
Yeah.
But I do still think it's very apparent. And so we feel the need to be busy a lot of the time, and to produce things and to have things to show for what we've done with our time, with our day, with our lives. And we don't, we forget that we are human beings, not human doings, and that actually we do need time to just be sometimes.
Just be.
But again, easier said than done.
Easier said than done. And I am a big, big, big advocate for this whole anti-productivity growth type thing. I just, for someone with crippling ADHD, productivity does not come naturally to me in the sense of morning routines and things like that.
Yeah.
It does not matter how hard I try. I could maybe do it for a couple of weeks and then something will happen and it's never happening again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is me. I've had to go with the flow of my ADHD.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be a productivity bro. But I used to constantly beat myself up over the fact that I couldn't stick to this morning routine. I couldn't get up at 5 a.m. and have a full breakfast and do all these things. And I know I spoke on previous episodes about like how I'm striving to have this routine, and I will, but it's not going to look like how I imagined in my mind. And the same as these productivity videos and other things that you see. And I think it's just really, really important to know that for me, prioritizing peace over productivity is much more healthy than striving to something that is ultimately going to leave you in burnout.
I agree. And I bet you find, well, I say I bet you find, do you find that when you go with the flow of, so with your ADHD, I know that you have periods where you feel like you're hyper-focused and like you can do something, right? So I'm guessing that when you have one of these periods, you could probably work for an hour or two and probably produce just as much, if not more, than you would produce if you had somebody saying to you, you need to sit here for the next 6 hours
100%.
and do this. And, this is me assuming based on what I know about you, but what's your... Is that something that happens for you?
100%. And yeah, like you said, you know me. And even with the podcast and with stuff that we've been doing for socials, you saw me literally achieve like so much content in the space of like a really short space of time. And I'd also achieved other things for my other businesses in that time. And I find having a deadline helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, up until the deadline, probably about an hour or two before, I'm not doing the thing.
Yes, I know what you mean.
I'm definitely not doing the thing. But I can still achieve that kind of, and that's why the whole productivity thing, and I kind of am leaning to going with the flow. I'm starting the task when my body is telling me alignments. Yeah.
You're more in flow than you think.
I'm learning so much from this episode, guys. I really am. I am in flow. It's not just my creativity.
No.
My whole life is in flow.
You are. You're embracing flow.
No, and I think this is really important, actually. I think my expectation of flow prior to this conversation was like, oh, everything's a breeze, as I mentioned, and life comes effortlessly to me, all those affirmations you tell yourself. But really now, having this conversation and thinking about it, I'm a lot more in flow, and I need to stop holding myself to such a high standard of what flow looks like.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. I love a profound moment on the pod.
I know. We've had a lot of those recently.
I'm just sat there like realising like, wait.
Light bulb moment.
Yeah. But that's what it's all about. We're learning from each other. We're having open conversations, and I'm hoping people that are listening are also having those moments in their own lives.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So we've talked a lot about flow and what that looks like in our own lives, but what about relationships? What does flow look like in with other people?
Yeah, so I think flow looks like mutual effort. And when I say mutual effort, I don't actually mean that things always have to be 50-50, because there are times in any relationship, whether this is like romantic or whether it's a family relationship or a friendship, where someone has a lot more going on than the other person.
Or you're giving more at that time.
Yeah, you're giving more. So I think flow in relationships is where, there might be times where you're both able to give 50-50. There might be times where one of you is able to give 30%. So the other one steps in.
Picking up the load.
And picks up the 70% and vice versa. And I think when I think about it in the context of romantic relationships, and I think about flow, so I always think back to when you're single and you've like just met somebody, maybe you've just matched with somebody on like a dating app or something, and remember those days. So you're in the like talking phase.
Oh yeah.
And we've probably all been there where we've been in like the talking phase with somebody. And it's just such hard work. You feel like you're forcing the conversation. You feel like you're waiting, maybe hours for a response. And do you know what I mean? It feels really like you're fighting an uphill battle.
There's a lot of energy going into a small conversation. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and you're kind of like, but you sometimes feel like you have to do it because you're kind of like, I don't know this person yet.
I need to give them my best impression.
Yeah, I need to give them my best impression. I need to see if it's going to go anywhere. But a lot of the time, you're putting a lot into the conversation and it can just feel like an uphill battle. Whereas I think sometimes when you're at that stage with somebody, things can feel like they're in flow even though you're really busy. So I always think about when I met my now husband and we were in the like talking phase. I feel like we're going to have to do another episode on this. But when we were in our like talking or texting phase, we were both really busy at that time of our lives. He had a lot of commitments. I was traveling a lot with work. We were both very, very busy, but there was like mutual effort and things were just flowing. It was very natural. It wasn't forced. And it was kind of like, we're going to make time for these messages. We're going to make time for the calls. We're going to make time for the dates because it just felt right. Things were in flow. And that's not to say that Cupid over here.
You're welcome.
And that's not to say that, we weren't busy and we didn't have things going on. No. But things just flowed really naturally.
There was no kind of, it didn't feel like too much effort.
Yeah, it wasn't forced. We weren't trying to force an outcome and neither of us were trying to like force a date or meeting up. It all just flowed really naturally.
It slotted into place with both your lives.
It slotted into place. And I think that when something is kind of right, that's just what happens. Whereas, as I mentioned, I've been in situations before where I've been like texting somebody or at the dating stage and it's just felt like such hard work.
God, I'm having PTSD from like multiple like, talking stages like years and years ago. It can be such a drain, can't it? So I think that's the thing. It's like, for me, flow in relationships, even when you're dating, is when things just feel right. And no matter how busy you are or they are, there's still this mutual effort and this mutual desire. And things just somehow, even though you're really busy, things just fall into place. You end up with slots where you can go for dates. You end up, it just works. Yeah.
Whereas sometimes it's like things just don't work and it just feels really clunky.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to kind of talk about us with the podcast as well. Yes. And there's a third member of the podcast that is not visible.
Behind
the scenes. And we have said multiple times, like, this project that we're doing, it just seems to flow amazingly. Like, we're all picking up what we can and there might be a time where someone's doing more than like another person, but that's because they want to, or like they're kind of better at doing whatever. But we're all picking up equally in some areas, and and it doesn't feel hard.
It's teamwork, isn't it? I think actually that's probably a really good way to summarize flow in relationships. It's teamwork and it's balance, isn't it? And I think that's probably how I'd summarize it.
Perfect.
So what advice would you give to any of our listeners who maybe feel like they want to move out of force and move more into flow?
So my first thing would be stop. Just stop for a second. Let's evaluate everything that's going on. Okay. So I would look at, say, situations that might feel a little bit too heavy at the moment, or just something that you're not 100% happy with, or feel like you're really feels like that uphill struggle that we've been talking about in the episode. And I would say stop doing it, or if you got rid of this thing in your week, your life, how would it impact you? If it's not a big negative impact, if it's a positive impact, or if it's you don't know how it's going to be, get rid of it, or temporarily get rid of it. Stop doing that thing and see how your life changes over the next week or so. And that is something that I have had to do. I've had to step back from things that I didn't realize were causing me such a blocker in my life, or a blocker from achieving flow. And I've had to just take a break from it and see. And that's when I've been able to reflect and be like, okay, it wasn't so bad that I stopped doing this thing, or I don't need this thing in my life. Yeah, so I think constantly reevaluating stages of your life is important, because it's very, very easy to become complacent and be on that hamster wheel and just keep going and keep going and keep going until essentially you burn out, or I don't know. So I think it's very, very important to sometimes do just a stock check of things and an audit and think, right, what can I let go of, or what can I stop doing? What can I take a break from? So that would be my one piece of advice.
That's amazing. Thank you. I think I am going to be doing that myself over the next week.
Yeah. And find someone to hold you accountable.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
That's another one. If there's someone in your life that you can have hold you accountable, yeah, helpful.
Very helpful. Perfect. Thanks, hon.
It's okay.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Pretty Spiritual.
If you've enjoyed hanging out with us, don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow along on our platforms to receive any future updates from us.
We hope to see you next Tuesday, the 7th of April, for the next episode of Pretty Spiritual.
Pretty Spiritual.